There's no denying it, Moses Itauma is one of the most exciting young prospects in the sport. A southpaw with ring IQ beyond his years, combined with quick footwork and fast, lethal combinations. From the eye test alone, he looks to have it all, but on August 16th, he faces his toughest test yet, in the body snatcher, Dillian Whyte, a seasoned contender who's beaten most of the division's challengers, but fell short at the very top. Whyte now finds himself at the tail end of his career, and the question is now, can his experience and grit overcome this youthful hype? Itauma though will be wanting to prove he's ready for the leap into the big leagues, and show us that the hype is real. In today's tactical overview, I'm going to break down how each fighter might approach this matchup, and what it will take for either man to win. So on that note, let's get right into it. Let's start off with the 20-year-old Itauma. At this stage, he's possibly already transitioned from a prospect into a genuine contender for a world title soon. And this bout against Dillian Whyte is without doubt the biggest test of his career so far. He'll either flourish under the pressure, or be taken to places we've yet to see him encounter. Many have drawn the comparisons with Mike Tyson, and while I can understand that in terms of his age and talent, stylistically, he reminds me more of a young Michael Moorer, with the flash and hand speed of a Joe Calzaghe. And just like both those fighters, Itauma is a southpaw who operates with that low lead hand, but he's incredibly fluid with it, using it to probe, feint, block, while looking to jab from multiple positions. And I feel this versatility with the lead hand makes him extremely hard to read, especially for both orthodox and southpaw opponents.
You might be in trouble.
Another major strength of his is his footwork, and at 6'4" and weighing between 240 and 255 pounds in his last 5 fights, he moves remarkably well for a heavyweight. He rarely stays in the same spot for too long, often circling out to his left against orthodox fighters, before looking to launch an attack as the opponent tries to move with him.
That's such a wily operator. He's got strengths of his own.
Moses also likes to press the action too. You'll often see him use that circular lead hand or a level change body feint, something very akin to the likes of Usyk and Lomachenko at times. And this not only disguises the feints to the body, but also creates openings for upstairs. And this is one of his best habits, consistently jabbing to the body with a level change, either as a straight shot or probing feint. Over time, this helps draw the opponent's guard down, helping to set up the backhand or overhand over the top. While I've also been impressed by his knack for drawing out jabs, making opponents fall short with theirs before countering over the top with a quick right hook, which in turn makes opponents hesitant to throw out their jab as often. While he's also shown his ability to slip inside before firing a left hand counter. And like most southpaws, he'll look to set up that straight left by winning the outside foot position, using weight shifts and lead hand feints or double jabs to create the opening to fire it down the pipe. I also love how he changes the trajectory of the punch, as he can mix in throwing it more conventionally or throwing it as a rear hook. While another interesting area is how he often attacks straight down the centre line, stepping in with the jab, while sometimes throwing the jab cross before setting up the hook behind it.
I reckon I'll be able to take them all.
Now that can be risky, as it leaves you exposed to the orthodox's right hand, but Moses gets away with it because of his speed, footwork, and constant variation, not to mention his perfect timing in executing this. And I just think it's the feints, the movement and lead hand activity that keeps opponents too busy defending to mount much of an offense in return. Now of course, the opponents in front of him so far have made him look good and be able to execute a lot of these techniques without much return coming back. And against Dillian Whyte, I suspect he will use a lot of this, but there are areas I think he can exploit as well.
That was a little open. Down the right hand he goes.
And a key point going into this fight is Whyte has only faced one true southpaw in his professional career, a Czech journeyman back in 2014, with that fight being over a decade ago. Apart from the opponents who have switched stances briefly, this lack of recent experience against left-handers definitely favours the natural southpaw in Itauma going into this fight. And looking back at that fight, Whyte did look to establish his jab early, while there was also a short period in his fight with Tyson Fury where he switched southpaw against him, and there was that clear lead hand battle between the two, and Whyte looked to get drawn into it, and at times appeared a little too eager for me, pulling down the opponent's lead hand too far, which could be dangerous as Itauma has very fast hands, and that's where I can see him punishing him with those quick right hooks over the top. Fury also managed to make Whyte bite on a couple of feints, as Dillian actually dropped both his hands in the process, while he almost caught him out with a rear hook from that position too. And these are exactly the kind of traps I expect Moses to use. Whyte also has a tendency to leave himself open with his jab, and although it can be one of his best weapons at times, he'll often overextend, probe for too long, or simply admire his own work, dropping his guard right after throwing. And we've seen him get punished multiple times by doing this. While there's no denying he's vulnerable when committing to body shots, especially with that right hand. And that's where Itauma could land the sharp counter right hook while shuffling back, or using a follow-up left hand while angling off to the right. And if Whyte doesn't keep either hand up when he commits with the right or left hook to the body, that could be a fight-changing moment for Itauma to exploit. Whyte's guard is also fairly fluid, switching from a low lead hand to a cross guard to a high guard while looking to catch, block and parry shots, while also looking to use lots of waist movement alongside this. And although this is all great to have within his defense, I think too often he tries to do too much. Because of this, he often reacts to things like body shots and feints more than he should. And once again, that is where Moses can really make him second guess himself and mentally fatigue him in terms of what could come next. Itauma has already shown how well he can set up the big overhand left from his last two fights, and with Whyte's tendency to drop his lead hand, that opening could very well appear at some point. Furthermore, Whyte likes to sometimes roll with shots before returning with a counter right, and Itauma has already shown this where he looks to beat you to the punch with the right hook. One area I think Itauma should avoid is extended exchanges on the inside. Whyte is still lethal there, especially with his body punching, which can set up his own big shots upstairs, and particularly that left hook, which has caught out many opponents, whether from short or long range. In those moments, Moses either needs to roll the shot with his lead shoulder or step back and counter, or even look to smother Whyte's work completely in those positions. And he simply can't get careless because even when Whyte is hurt, he's shown time and time again he has enough to launch a fight-ending hook out of nowhere, and being prepared for that will be just as important as setting up his own attacks. Now, let's take a look at the body snatcher Dillian Whyte. And since that Tyson Fury fight, his career has been a mixed bag, from failing a drugs test to cancelled bouts, and in that time, he's produced 3 mid-performances since challenging for that world title in 2022. Jermaine Franklin proved Whyte can still be tested. His bout with Christian Hammer was largely a tune-up after a long layoff, and the fight with Tete was more competitive, with moments that could have gone very wrong for Whyte. And now he steps in with Moses Itauma, a very different level of opponent. I've already mentioned that facing a southpaw could be a significant challenge for him here, but Whyte does have some useful weapons in his arsenal, alongside his experience, and that can still be dangerous, even with his flaws. I've always admired Whyte's jab. It may not be the prettiest technically, but he always used it with purpose, going to the body,
Target to aim at.
to set up the overhand right,
Closer, closing the distance, and a shot from Whyte.
working combinations, and that slight awkwardness in delivery can make it unpredictable at times, despite the flaws. And of course his left hook remains his money punch. If he times you in close exchanges or catches you mid-combination, it can be fight-ending. One clean shot and most opponents are going to be in trouble. In his last 3 fights under Buddy McGirt though, Whyte has also adopted more of a cross-guard defense, and this style can be effective at blocking combinations and smothering shots, but it comes with trade-offs. It can leave openings to the body and make it harder to counter quickly from certain positions, while the way Whyte does position his cross-guard could leave an opening for those looping lefts for Itauma. Nevertheless, he'll need to be careful about when he actually chooses to use this. Now, we may perhaps be in the closing chapters of Whyte's career, but he still has the experience and ringcraft to potentially frustrate and derail this young fighter, who has never been in the deep waters of championship fights. And the mental challenge for Itauma will be whether he can stay composed if Whyte does force him to work harder than expected early, or into the later rounds. That said, Whyte's own gas tank has been questionable at times, as he too has tended to slow down in the later rounds. But if I'm in Whyte's corner, the path might be to frustrate Itauma in the early rounds, making him overwork with his combinations, and lure him into exchanges, which can create openings. We've seen Moses go 6 rounds earlier in his career against 2 journeymen, and at times looked visibly frustrated when he couldn't get the stoppage. Some other small observations I've noticed about Itauma: in those 6 rounders for example, he did occasionally open himself up to right hands, as he commits with his own left, even if they didn't land clean. I still think this is an opportunity for Whyte to set up that follow-up right hand.
Vichenko getting a little bit more ambitious, gets caught again.
While Itauma has clearly improved since then, Dillian does have the ability to sit down on the inside exchanges and use those so-called dirty veteran tactics, like pulling the lead head down, leaning in with his body weight, or using forearms, and it could very well disrupt his rhythm. Illegal or not, they can make a young fighter think twice about engaging, or open up to prove a point. The bigger question for Whyte though is how he closes the distance in the first place if he does use that tactic. Itauma's foot speed and preference in controlling the range means Whyte won't have that constant access to those inside battles. It may require Whyte to hold his ground on the ropes and corners, using that cross guard to roll with shots to create countering opportunities with his hook. Any moment he can impose his physicality could help close that gap in skill. If they're standing at mid-range or in the centre of the ring, another opportunity for Whyte is using that right hand behind his jab, or the double jab to back Itauma up. I do feel sometimes Itauma does move back in straight lines, relying more on his quick footwork, while he also carries that low lead hand when he does it, and sometimes doesn't react enough for the follow-up right hand. I do believe a combination that can leave him vulnerable is being driven back with a stiff double jab, and if Whyte can time it right, he may just be able to set up that overhand right over the top, especially if he gets the outside position when he throws this. It may just give him the potential to catch Itauma before he has time to reset his guard. Still, all of this is a lot easier said than done. Itauma has shown his ring IQ to avoid those unnecessary inside wars and the footwork to get out of danger quickly, and often looking to counter if opponents overextend to land. And Whyte can't afford to get greedy trying to land that one big shot by overextending himself, because against a sharp, quick finishing southpaw like Itauma, that could be lights out for him. One thing's for sure, Whyte's going to have to put on one of his best performances against a fighter who will show him things he hasn't seen before. I think going into this, most are excited just to see how Moses Itauma handles a more experienced opponent, considering he's been so largely in control and dominant in his performances so far, and there's no guarantee it will be a smooth sail in this one. Whyte is battle tested, dangerous, and willing to drag a fight into rough territory to get the result. And although there's gaps and flaws within his style, and he probably isn't as quick as he once was, his power is still real, and that left hook remains a fight ender. Personally, I think he needs to try and frustrate Itauma early and try to take him into the later rounds and have a fight at close quarter exchanges, as that might be the only way we see a competitive fight. Itauma though just has to really stay composed under the pressure, controlling the range and not getting dragged into Whyte's fight, while taking advantage of his speed and southpaw stance. He has all the capability to win this fight comfortably, but depending how Whyte shows up, he may just be in for a tougher night than he ever expected. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Itauma is the real deal? Can Whyte prove his experience is too much at this stage? It's me, Jamie from Boxing Life. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like this video, it really helps out. Or if you're new here, why not subscribe? If you want to see how this fight plays out on August 16th, you can use my link in the description below to sign up. Enjoy the fight when it comes, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.